Hi again, everyone. Today, we'll start to examine existential therapy. And for existential therapy, uh, what I want to say here is that, all of these theories can be quite difficult to understand and comprehend, but because they are so abstract, I mean, they're thoughts. There's very little tangible things to hold on to. So that's your average theory. This theory, existential, goes further out on that limb than we've ever been before, because existential is really more of a philosophy than it is anything else. Than it maybe is a theory, and so we'll go out on that limb here together, at least. So we've got primarily two existential theorists that rise up, and so you've got Viktor Frankl. Frankl was Vienna educated, and his story becomes quite an important one. He was in Austria, in Vienna, around the time of the rise of Hitler, and he was taken prisoner and was housed in a concentration death camp of the Nazis. And he basically watched his family, his parents, his brother, his wife, and children go away and be killed. He survived, but from that survival rose out this love is the highest goal, and we always have choices. And so we may not be able to choose our circumstances, but we can choose the manner in which we allow them to have control over us. And so I really, really dig that. And I find that piece, that the love is the highest goal and that we always have choices, to be quite beautiful, really. Then we've got over here Rollo May. And Rollo May was an Ohio native, kind of came from an unhappy home. He had a history of broken marriages. He studied under Adler, which is kind of interesting. And he contracted tuberculosis uh, during during his life, and he had a 2-year stay at a sanitarium. And so basically, there was a lot of anxiety for him, kind of around that. It's a lot of death anxiety, and so he was interested in helping people find meaning in their life and contribute back to society. So that's a little bit of the foundational figures here. Now we'll get into existential philosophy. So existentialism is a 20th century philosophy concerned with human existence, and so finding yourself and the meaning of life. But these become important through free will, choice, and personal responsibility, and not deterministic as we were in Freud. Believe that people are in search of in search to find out who and what they are throughout their lives. And so we want self-awareness, we want self-understanding, as we make choices based on our experiences, our beliefs, our outlook on life, those kinds of things. So as mentioned earlier, existential therapy is really a philosophy, it's a way of thinking more than it's any particular style of practicing psychotherapy. And I do want to say that there's a prominent existential therapist in the Kearney area. He's a dear friend of mine, Dr. Paul Welter, and his quote that I love treating clients out of existential is that, I help people forget themselves. And so I think that's kind of an interesting way of looking at issues. Impact on society. So all of these theories are time and place bound. So it's important to know that, as I mentioned earlier, this came to rise after the Great Depression and prior to World War II, and it was at a time when society was troubled, unrest, economies were bad. There was this sense of deep, deep despair. So this despair had this existential despair and philosophy had went well into the 70s and now even beyond because of this freedom to choose uh, is still alive and well today, but mainly it went into the 70s. So, existentialism is the search and journey for the true self and true personal meaning in life. So, it's the search for meaning. Existentialism is about meaning. So, let's see. It also does not do well, to the second point on the slide. Existentialism does not do well with those in authority and power positions dictating what those who are not in power positions do. And so every person is valuable, every person is deserves to make their own choices, not to have those in power force those on them. Existentialism believes that it destroys the individual, makes a person become whatever the people in power desire they become. They're dehumanized, and they're made an object, really.